Hello, welcome to Newscentre. With me, Parikshit Luthra. Should cricketers be treated like corporate executives? According to an Indian Express report, the BCCI is considering performance-based variable pay for Indian cricketers. The men's team had suffered a whitewash by New Zealand at home and a series loss away to Australia. Team captain Rohit Sharma, coach Gautam Gambhir and chief selector Ajit Agarkar held a meeting to discuss the fallout of the loss in Australia. The Indian Express reports that the idea behind the move is to ensure players are more accountable. The proposed system is similar to how corporate houses appraise their employees annually. Will this work in cricket? Joining us now are sports commentator Sumanth Raman and senior sports journalist Shekhar Luthra. Shekhar Luthra, if I can begin with you, give us a sense of how seriously has the BCCI taken the Indian team's poor show against New Zealand and also Australia in the Border Gavaskar Trophy?
Well, that was a loss. But again, you don't have to forget that it was a very close series, It was being fought by both the teams. And the difference between a winning or losing team was probably a one player or a two player, because India wanted somebody who could anchor the innings there on difficult pitches. And we were missing Chiteshwar Pujara badly. Our coach wanted him, but he was not given to the team. So if you have to make accountable, then obviously you have to make the same people accountable who are holding meeting. If that is true, Mr. Ajit Agarkar has to be accountable. Why didn't he give in to the wishes of team management? Then obviously, because everybody else, apart from one or two senior players, everybody contributed. It was very close series. We won the first test. We lost them 3 matches, and out of those 3, if you remember, 2 were very, very closely fought matches. So corporatization or not, I don't understand. If you can only make them accountable by giving them a specific task or by choosing the right people in the team. How can you say that a person who is scoring 100 is more valuable than a person who is probably saving 30 runs on the field, then scoring 30 more and taking 2 more wickets? It is all very absurd, very vague thought that has come into BCCI minds. I don't know what they are trying to achieve, but they will create more rift in the team. They will make players more individual than the team in a team game. They will be scoring it themselves. They'll be taking more wickets. Or probably they'll be, putting butter to their captain to get a ball when there are talent, so that he can take more wickets, than a player who has taken initial wickets or something like that.
Let me Chandrasekhar Luthra get in Sumanth Raman also. Sumanth Raman, what do you think about these discussions within the BCCI for introducing a variable pay structure depending on performance? Also saying that no player will be allowed to travel separately. Everyone, for the sake of unity, will have to travel in the team bus. We're also getting reports that Gautam Gambhir's manager will not be allowed to travel in the team bus or stay in the same hotel as the Indian team. How do you see these discussions?
I think some of this are a direct fallout of what happened in Australia. And I can draw viewers' attention to Bharat Sundareshan's article, where after India won the Perth Test, the team went separate ways. They did not even have a joint celebration together. And one of the team support staff, he writes, offered to use his credit card to pay for everyone's dinner and so on. But by the time each group had sort of gone its own way, and some of them went with their families and so on. So that lack of team spirit was something that he found very surprising. And this could clearly be a reaction to that. Now, that was one instance that was narrated, and we know it because the journalist wrote about it. We don't know what else happened on the tour of Australia. So I think as far as variable pay is concerned, I think this is not a new concept at all. Performance-based incentives have been there. BCCI has been having such a practice even earlier. So when the team performs, they are generally given a larger, it's called a bonus, or it's called a performance incentive or whatever. But the bottom line is very clear. The risk of, the team spirit being dissipated by people having, one of the things that has been noticed multiple times is when cricketers have their families with them throughout a series, they tend to stick to their families more than, they tend to stick to their teams. And this is something which has been So the BCCI used to have a policy where, in a 45-day tour or 1.5 months or 2 months tour, the families will come in, they will be there, allowed to be there for about a week, 2 weeks, and so on. But after that, they go away. And I think going back to such a system actually may help the players focus on the game, because, or at least,
Absolutely.
the bonding may be better.
Okay, I'll come back. And this was the rule before COVID. It was scrapped temporarily. It's been brought back now. This is what we learned from reports. But Shekhar Luthra, do you think this would be a good idea, barring family members and wives to stay with the players for the entire duration of the tour? According to reports, it is being said that when it comes to tours or series more than 45 days long, the family can stay with you for 14 days. For shorter tours, the limit would be 7 days. Do you think this is an important step forward?
Well, Parikshit, who is staying there for the entire series? I don't think so. And talking about 45 days tour, how many tours now we have for 45 days? We hardly play 1 or 2 tests in Sri Lanka or South Africa. We play 3 matches. It is only in Australia sometimes or in England, that we play 5 matches. And every time I have toured so many times with Indian team. Every time I think the family comes, they go. It all depends on the individual. And they are not amateur players. They are very professional. They know, they understand. And first of all, let me correct also my partner, my friend there. India never had this variable pay structure. It is only the that contracts, the annual contracts, which separates them or give them higher or lower wages, because somebody is there in the A plus or A category or B category. That's a very different pay structure. Otherwise, it has always been a one pay structure. Number one. And number two, when we talk about the families, sometimes if there is a tough tour, like in Australia, sometimes, you go through hard times, you go through bad times, you need somebody to talk to, within family. And obviously, I have seen so many times after Monkey Gate. I still remember that day when we traveled to Canberra after Sydney, after New Year controversy in Sydney. And the players were regrouping, the players were having tough times. Everybody was chasing them from media to general public. And that was the time they needed somebody close, to their heart. And obviously, they were families, they were wives of Lakshman or Dravid. I remember that time. They were helping the chefs there, the chefs who were not very trained in Indian cuisine and all. They were helping them to make that, a choice of, some dal or something like that to help their families.
Okay.
So it is very amateurish, I would say. And absolutely in 45 days, nobody stays there more than 2 or 3 weeks. It is only 1 or 2 players probably who are, because of their star power, or somebody like Bumrah. If his wife is there for the entire tour, obviously she's a commentator. She's a presenter there. Can you stop her from not?
All right, I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Shekhar Luthra. Let me go across to Mr. Sumanth Raman as well. Mr. Raman, you wanted to come in. Do you feel that some of this accountability is now needed, or is it excess?
Some of the accountability is definitely needed. Generally, what happens is these things get looked at only when the performance is bad. When you're winning, nobody really asks any questions, whatever may be there. And that is why they say failure probably teaches you a lot more things than success ever does. And in this case, there is a need for some level of moderation. I know people will say, don't treat 30-year-olds and 35-year-olds like children. That I agree. But at some point, eventually it comes down to the coach and what he feels needs to be done. So if Gambhir is holding the post, then the BCCI should give him all the necessary support that he requires to make the team perform. Now, the other point about this, that BCCI has never paid performance incentives. Through the 90s, there was a policy where if they, based on the number of matches won and so on, there would be what was called a bonus, which used to be given. And they have sort of restructured it multiple times. And one of the ways that it has been restructured was, the bonus was not given based on individual performance of, if you score 2 centuries, you will get more money. Not that way, but the performance of the team. So if the team won, X number of series or X number of matches, then there was an additional incentive which was given to the team. So that was there, but clearly not on a, if you take more wickets, you'll get more money, not that way. Now what has been done also, and this is part of the BCCI's present thing, if a player is picked for more number of tests, more number of ODIs, more number of T20s, they stand to benefit more, not just from a fixed salary, but their bracket. So the whole point is, this is not, variable pay is not a new concept for the BCCI. They have experimented and tinkered with it in multiple formats. I mean, what do you call it? Whether you call it pay for performance, whether you call it incentive, whether you call it bonus, whether you call it, slabs for players, whatever you may call it. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is not everybody who plays gets exactly the same amount. Now, the other important point is that players, Gambhir's manager was traveling in the team bus, is something that has come as an absolute bolt from the blue, because normally, you don't have the manager's manager or the coach's manager traveling in the team bus. And I think BCCI, if indeed this rule has been put into effect, it's very good that they have actually called the bluff and said that the manager of Gambhir cannot travel in either the team bus or the adjacent or the bus behind it. So I think that that's a good step.
All right.
So everybody has got something to be happy about.
All right. Shekhar Luthra, my final question to you. Of course, there are a lot of discussions happening within the BCCI over the last few weeks. But what are some of the changes you definitely expect will happen to the team and the manner in which they function in the days to come? What are some of the definite changes you expect in the months to come?
You have to reward players who are more into the test team, or the test structure. They are contributing more into the test. Because what has happened with Cheteshwar Pujara or Ajinkya Rahane or so many other players who are, concentrating more on test cricket, that they were, kind of dropped, or they were not taken by the big teams in IPL. So there was discussion, there were agreement also, kind of not official, but unofficially, everybody agreed that they need to be incentivized. They need to be given more money so that, they should not feel, left out from the others. So what has happened that over the period of time, the selectors, they have been picking players from the IPL team, even for the test teams. And that's where the problem comes. That's how, probably, a player like Rishabh Pant, who is so crucial to the team, but now he goes out, plays some I would say unwanted shots and gets out. He gets into the trap of other team. And probably if on the other side, there is not a mature player like Pujara or somebody, a very senior player, he cannot guide him. He cannot stop him. He cannot tell him to, check his shots. So that's where, you have to prioritize, right. You have to incentivize. But the problem, one more thing, last thing, if Gambhir's manager was traveling in the team, that is a very serious issue. I just forgot to mention this. Okay. When he was traveling, because of the other things in place, the Anti-Corruption Bureau, the clear guidelines are only the local manager, your manager, Gambhir, and all these, sports staff, only they can travel with the team. If somebody else was traveling, it calls for a serious inquiry. It calls to, for the Gambhir also to explain why was this happening. Just because he's a former member of parliament, he was given this compensation package of, switching sides or switching one role to another because he was not getting ticket from the BJP, that he has to explain. This is a very serious breach of, privilege. Yes.
Okay, we've run out of time, but Shekhar Luthra, Sumanth, Raman, thank you very much for joining us on the program with their views on a very important story affecting India's favorite sport. We are taking a short break, but coming up on the other side, relief from income tax has emerged as a major demand across industry players. From the upcoming union budget, we take stock of the growing demand for a tax overhaul with former Infosys CFO TV Mohandas Pai on the other side. Stay tuned.